Hi, my name is Lorne Greene. Picture yourself among thousands of people abroad for a moment. On camera, Lorne Greene smiled as Ben Cartwright, but things got messy when the movie was over. It got hard for him to get along with his co-stars, and his first marriage ended. He also used his fame to change how TV shows were made. He even got rich off of a small invention he made. How things really were on the Bonanza set is very different from what you remember. She was born in Ottawa, Canada on February 12, 1915. Daniel Green and Dora Slain, his parents were Jewish people who came to the United States from the Russian Empire. They gave him the name Lion Hyon Green, but his mom called him Haim. His name was Haim when he first started school, but he changed it to Lorne at some point. Not even his family knows when that happened. As a child, he saw his parents have a hard time. His dad used to make shoes, but the stock market crash in 1929 put him out of business. They lost all of their savings and had to start over, just like many other families did during the Great Depression. But his folks made sure he went to a good school. He wasn't meant to be a concert violinist, even though they hoped he would become one. As a kid, he found something he loved while working at Camp Arohan in Algonquin Park as a theater teacher. He felt more confident after teaching theater, and he saw that he was good at acting. He didn't go to Queen's University in Kingston to become an actor when he started there in 1932. He had planned to become a chemical engineer, but when he joined the university's drama guild and started acting on CFRC, the school radio station, his plans changed. He knew that his voice made him stand out, so he could focus on acting more. He changed his major to languages and learned French and German. He was sure of what he wanted to do by the time he finished in 1937. He wanted to be an actress. In order to get better, he moved to New York and went to the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater to learn. He learned from Sanford Meisner, a coach famous for making great players there. Greene put in a lot of work, but his job didn't take off right away. In 1939, he went back to Canada to find work and became a radio announcer for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. People were struck by his strong, powerful voice. Soon, people all over the country knew who he was, and they called him the Voice of Canada. Then World War II started, and his job changed. He became the main newscaster for CBC and read battle stories every night. A lot of the news was bad, like military losses, death tolls, and bad news from the front lines. People began calling him the Voice of Doom because of how powerful his voice was. His radio and TV shows were heard all over Canada, and for many, he brought the war into their homes. He also read propaganda pictures for the National Film Board of Canada during this time. He worked on the 1941 film Churchill's Island, which was about Britain's war against Germany. For the first time ever, the movie won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Short Subject. Greene's introduction made the movie strong. He wasn't just an artist, though. He also came up with new ideas. He made a clock that runs backwards while he was working at CBC. This stopwatch did the opposite of what most do, which is count down. For radio hosts, it showed them exactly how much time was left in a show. In the days before computers, this was a huge plus. The stopwatch was used all the time in radio and TV, which improved timing and made changes easier. Even though it was a small idea, Greene's product had a big effect and even made him money. He opened the Lorne Greene Academy of Radio Arts in Toronto in 1945. Stars like Leslie Nielsen and James Doohan learned their craft at that school. It had 381 grads, and most of them got jobs in acting or television. But even with all of this success, school had a hard time making ends meet. Greene had to shut it down in 1952. Sold the house and went to Hollywood to make a name for himself. Hollywood wasn't friendly at first. In addition to independent work, Greene was in live TV shows, but his deep voice, which had been his radio specialty, made things hard. Casting directors thought he was too serious and in charge. It was hard for him to do things because he was often cast as a father figure or a strong leader. He kept going anyway. He showed he could do more than just give news when he played the lead in Othello on Broadway in 1953. In 1954's The Silver Chalice, he played St. Peter in his first Hollywood movie. It was also Paul Newman's first movie role. The Biblical Tale, which was directed by Victor Seville, had a unique look that made reviewers disagree. Some people liked how artistically ambitious it was, while others thought it felt fake. In the end, even Newman said it was one of the worst movies ever. The movie was important to Greene, even though it got mixed reviews. He got to be seen on TV and movies, and he proved that he could give real weight to religious and historical parts. But the issue of being typecast didn't go away. It was hard for Greene to get different kinds of parts because of his deep voice and strong personality. He chose to accept it instead of fighting it. His stage parts were strong. In 1953, he was in the Prescott Proposals, and in 1958, he was in Edwin Booth. He played many different roles on TV shows, such as Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Sailor of Fortune, which ran from 1955 to 1958. He showed that he could do more than just play bad guys in these parts. The part that changed everything then came along. The first thing that helped Lorne Greene become Ben Cartwright on Bonanza was advice from his friend Leslie Nielsen. Greene had several offers at the time, and he could have played either the father, Ben, or the oldest son, Adam. Nielsen told him something that made it clear what to do. This part will become the heart of the show if you play the father. Nielsen said, "There's no way for you to come out without a hugely important position. Because you're the father, you're the only one of you four who can become famous." Greene took on the part in 1959 when he was 44 years old. It was the most important event in his career. When it first aired on NBC on September 12, 1959, Bonanza was one of the first TV shows to be shown in color. It looked very interesting, and the Western views were even more amazing because of it. Greene was mostly known as a radio host and a Canadian TV star, but now he was in charge of one of the most popular TV shows. He was great for the part because of his deep voice and strong personality. He made Ben Cartwright into a man who was both a wise leader and a loving father. Ben Cartwright was a man who felt the weight of his past while leading his 3 kids into the future. Not only did taking the part change his own career, but it also helped Bonanza become one of the most popular and long-running Westerns of all time. From 1959 to 1973, the show ran for 14 seasons and had a total of 432 episodes. All of them had Greene in them, making him one of the most recognized dads on TV. A lot more went on with Bonanza than just another Western. Lots of people loved it, and every week millions of them watched it. Ben Cartwright was at the heart of the story. He was a widowed father living on the Ponderosa Ranch near Virginia City, Nevada, with his 3 boys. Each son had a different mother, which made them unique and gave the show a chance to look at different ways families were. Adam, who was played by Pernell Roberts, was smart and took things seriously. Haas, who was played by Dan Blocker, had a big heart and was strong. Little Joe, who was played by Michael Landon, was the youngest and most rash of the group. The show wasn't just about cowboys and outlaws, because it had a lot of different kinds of characters. It was also about family and doing the right thing. The way Greene played Ben Cartwright became famous. Every word seemed important in his deep, strong voice. He was tough when he had to be, but he was also kind. He helped his kids with their problems and gave them tips on how to live their lives. In 2007, TV guide named Ben Cartwright the second most popular TV dad of all time. Kids and adults alike like that. Through time, Greene helped shape the person. In the beginning, Ben was strict and often used Bible verses to explain things. But Greene wanted him to be more than just a tough rancher. He wasn't afraid to use a gun. He thought he should be friendly and funny. That change made the character seem more real and set Bonanza Mike Quirt from other Westerns at the time. Greene not only changed his own part, but he also changed the way the show was going. Thought, hey. He wanted Bonanza to be more than just gunfights and excitement. He wanted it to have deep stories about family and The show talked about things that were ahead of their time when he was in charge. Bonanza talked about racism. In the 1964 episode, Enter Thomas Bowers by showing an African-American opera singer who was treated badly in Virginia City. Other episodes addressed interracial marriage and anti-Chinese bias. These stories showed the changes happening in society during the 1960s while staying true to the show's ideas of justice and integrity. Greene knew that people could relate to stories that made them feel something. He was sure that Bonanza would last because it wasn't just excitement, but also about how the characters interacted with each other. That strategy helped the show stay popular for 14 years, and even after it stopped in 1973, new fans were able to watch old episodes. During his time on Bonanza, Greene did more than just play. When his spoken word song Ringo came out in 1964, it made him a surprise music star. Instead of singing, Greene told the story in a deep, dramatic voice while Western-style music played in the background. People really liked it. People around the world were crazy about the Beatles at the time, and the name Ringo stood out. They stayed for the story after hearing the song, which some thought had something to do with Ringo Starr. Ringo became very popular. It was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 list on December 5, 1964. It also went to the top of the RPM Top Singles chart in Canada. Not many actors have had a #1 song and a hit TV show at the same time. Greene was now one of those actors. When Ringo did well, it led to more records. Greene made a number of records that were influenced by his Western character. Like famous cowboy ballads by singers like Marty Robbins. His music told stories with country and Western themes. He was great for the style because of his deep voice. Lorne Greene changed TV and entertainment for a long time, from the time he followed Leslie Nielsen's advice to the years he spent making Bonanza into something important. He was more than just an actor playing a cowboy. He was also a writer, a singer, and a person who knew how to make a great character and a great show. Lorne Greene was the show's heart, both on and off the screen. He played Ben Cartwright, the wise and well-liked father of the Cartwright family, but he had an impact on more than just playing. He became close with his co-stars Dan Blocker and Michael Landon. In real life as well as in the show, they saw him as a father figure and boss. So close were they to each other that they recorded records and went on tour together making music. With Pernell Roberts, things were not the same. He played the oldest son, Adam Cartwright, but he never felt at ease on the show. Roberts was a highly trained actor who wanted parts that would make you think. He thought Bonanza was too easy and had too many repeats. He was very critical of the scripts, saying they were not artistically sound. He also didn't like playing a character who always did what his father told him to do. His anger made things difficult with Greene, who saw himself as the head of the family. Greene tried to get Roberts to stay. Over 6 seasons, Roberts was set on leaving. In 1965, he quit the show to find work that would push him. It got ugly between Roberts and Michael Landon as well. Their relationship was tense and full of criticism for each other. Roberts was not afraid to make fun of Landon in public, and Landon wasn't afraid to question Roberts' playing skills. Things were already tough, but this stress made them even worse. When Roberts left, the show's makers thought about getting a new Cartwright, but they quickly dropped the idea after fans complained. To fill the gap, they added new personalities like Candy, a ranch hand played by David Canary. Greene stayed on set through all of these changes, keeping the group together and keeping the warm, family-like vibe that made Bonanza so special. Lorne Greene had 2 marriages that shaped his life and showed different parts of his journey. Rita Hans was his first wife. They got married in 1938 when he was still building his business. They had twins in 1944. Their names were Belinda Susan Bennett and Charles Greene. They built a life together for more than 20 years, but as Greene's fame grew, the expectations of Hollywood put space between them. By 1960, his role on Bonanza had made him famous, but they were no longer married. After a year, Greene got married to Nancy Deal. She worked hard to make things better in politics and as an actor. In 1968, they had a girl named Jillian Donnell Greene. He was married to this woman until the end of his life. unlike his first marriage. Nancy was more than just a good wife. She helped to create the National Women's Political Caucus and pushed for changes in foreign policy and women's rights with other politicians. After that, she started the Women's Institute of International Relations and used it to push for world change. When his career was at its peak, his first marriage ended, but his second marriage lasted through his years as a TV star and much longer. Nancy was by his side for 26 years and was there for him at every stage of his life. During his later years, when he was sick, she never left his side. Greene had surgery for an ulcer in 1987, but there were problems afterward. He died on September 11, and Nancy was by his side. At the height of his fame, Greene never forgot how important it was to be a dad. His daughter, Belinda Susan Bennett, wrote a book called My Father's Voice, the biography of Lorne Greene about him. In her book, she wrote about the man behind the fame through personal stories. He always found time for his kids, even though he worked long hours on set. His first job was as a father, so he was friendly and easy to talk to at home. The way he raised his kids mirrored the kind of dad he played on screen as Ben Cartwright. Strong, caring, and always looking out for those around him. Beyond his own home, he was devoted to family in other ways as well. People he worked with on Bonanza became close friends, and he even helped some of them start businesses that became rich. By the middle of the 1960s, Lorne Greene had played Ben Cartwright on Bonanza for 14 years. What did he want to be known for after the show stopped in 1973? Would he always be known as the wise rancher? Or could he try something new? He didn't stay in the world of Westerns. Instead, he did something unexpected in 1978. He played Commander Adama on Battlestar Galactica, which was a science fantasy show that was very different from anything else he had done. The show was about a group of human survivors trying to get away from the Cylons, a race of machines that wanted to kill them. Adama was in charge of them and led them through space to find a new home called Earth. It was a big change for Greene. He had been riding horses for years, but now he was in charge of a spaceship. He wasn't sure about the part at first. He had never read or seen any science fiction, and he was curious about whether a story this big could work on TV. But once the shooting started, he was all for it. He was more than just a combat leader. Adama was a father figure, a guardian, and a man who carried the weight of a whole society. Each episode of the show cost a huge $1 million, which made it one of the most expensive shows ever made. It had complicated plots, huge space fights, and special effects that were ahead of their time. Even so, it was only on for one season, from 1978 to 1979. The network stopped making it because it cost too much to make. But Battlestar Galactica wouldn't go away. It became a cult classic, and Greene's role as Adama was a big part of its history. His deep voice, hey, and strong personality gave the show a sense of reality that made even the craziest sci-fi parts seem real. Greene wasn't joking about the part. He wanted to learn more about science fiction, so he started reading. He watched movies like Star Wars and 2001, A Space Odyssey, and read more than 30 books. He liked the genre more as he learned more about it. He talked about how science fiction changed the way he thought about the future in conversations. He also said that being in space interested him and made him realize how important it was to take care of Earth. It paid off that he was ready. He did more than just play Adama as a leader. He also showed him as a man who was struggling with tough moral questions about duty in life. People really liked Battlestar Galactica, but it didn't help Greene in the long run. After Bonanza, it was hard for him to get another big hit. From 1973 to 1982, he was in two less well-known TV shows. In Griff, which ran from 1973 to 1975, he played Wade Griffin, a former police officer who became a private detective. It looked like a good show, but no one watched it, so it was canceled after one season. After that, he played Battalion Fire Chief Joe Rowrick on Code Red, 1981-1982. Irwin Allen created the show, which was about a group of firefighters and had safety lessons at the end of each episode. It only ran. Greene loved music even more than acting. which was a surprise. In 1964, when he was at the top of his TV career, he put out Ringo, a spoken word song about the criminal Johnny Ringo. It was such a big hit that it went straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The sound of Green made people want to listen. It was rare for an actor to be successful in singing. He made a number of records for RCA Victor, such as Welcome to the Ponderosa in 1964 and Portrait of the West in 1966. His strong, deep voice brought stories to life, which made his songs just as interesting as his movie roles. He found time to follow this interest even though his job as an actor was very busy. Collectors still look for his songs because they make them feel nostalgic and tell stories. Green loved telling stories in more ways than just acting and music. In the 1980s, he became a strong supporter of protecting wildlife. He was the host of Lorne Greene's New Wilderness, a Canadian nature documentary show that won many awards from 1982 to 1987. But his desire to help animals began a long time before that. He quietly gave money to groups like the Humane Society and worked on projects to save species that were in danger of going extinct. People who knew him well could tell how much he cared even though he didn't talk about it much. He thought people should take care of the environment, and he used his fame to get that word out. William Shatner was trying to make it in Canadian theater long before he was famous for his work on Star Trek. It was then that he met Lorne Greene. In the 1950s, they worked together at the Jupiter Theatre in Toronto. Greene, who was already a well-known actor, saw Shatner's promise and taught him a lot. He taught him more than just how to act. He also taught him how to make a living in the theater business. Greene taught Shatner how to trade stocks in 1955 when he was working at the Stratford Shakespeare Festival. The investment didn't work out, but that was really a lesson in being strong. Later, Shatner said that Greene helped him become more professional, which helped him for decades in Hollywood. Greene was known for being kind behind the scenes. He was successful as an actor and a musician, but he never saved all the good things for himself. He gave the income from some of his records to charity, which helped with things like cancer research and protecting wildlife. He didn't do these things to get attention. He just thought it was right to help others. The people he worked with and friends said he really wanted to make a difference. Lorne Greene, who played Ben Cartwright on Bonanza, had a lot of health problems in his last few months. He was taken right away to St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica in August 1987 for surgery. An open abscess was found, and surgery was done to fix the damage. He seemed to be getting better at first, but then he got bronchitis. It's dangerous for everyone, but especially for someone his age. Soon, his health got worse, and by August 30, he needed a respirator to help him breathe. Even though the doctor tried to save him, he died on September 11th, 1987, 72. The time of his death was very sad. In the follow-up show, Bonanza, The Next Generation, he was going to play Ben Cartwright again. This show would continue the story of the Cartwright family, and he was the only original cast member who was ready to come back. Filming was set to start in January 1988, but because his health was getting worse, the directors had to make changes. They hired John Ireland to play Aaron Cartwright, Ben's brother. Fans had hoped that Greene would come back, but they had to say goodbye to the man who had been the show's heart for more than 10 years. Greene's last days were spent with his family. Nancy, his wife, and their kids stayed with him. When word got out that he had died, it shocked Hollywood and friends all over the world. Over 500 people came to his funeral. Michael Landon and Pernell Roberts, who worked together on Bonanza, were among them. They came to show their gratitude. He was put to rest at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, where the service took place. He was very much missed on Bonanza, The Next Generation. The story had to be reorganized, and the creators had to think again about what they wanted the movie to be like. Many people thought John Ireland wasn't good enough in the part, even though he did his best. Ben Cartwright had always been the center of Bonanza. It felt different without Greene. Hugs and prayers came from all over the world. The show had been shown all over the world for years. and many people had grown up watching Greene play the steady and wise Ben Cartwright. His death made me miss him a lot. Watching old episodes of Bonanza again and again became more popular as fans held on to memories of the man who had shaped one of TV's most famous figures for 14 years. Greene had played Ben Cartwright, a tough but caring dad to 3 boys. Bonanza was on TV from 1959 to 1973. It was about the Cartwright family and their ranch in Nevada called the Ponderosa. Ben became one of TV's most famous dads thanks to Greene's acting. He based a lot of the character on his own father, Donald Greene, who he said was rigid but caring. That personal touch made Ben seem real, and people could relate to him. But Greene had an effect on more than just Bonanza. He was known as the Voice of Canada as a CBC radio host during World War II. Because of his strong voice, a lot of people believed him in Canadian media. He later used the same voice to fight for things he believed in. He spoke out for racial unity and wouldn't act for mixed-race crowds. Along with that, he worked on environmental projects like Lorne Greene's New Wilderness, a show that taught people more about wildlife and nature. Even after he died, his influence was still strong. He was made an Officer of the Order of Canada in 1969, which is a very rare award that praised his work in the performing arts. He got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on his 70th birthday, February 12, 1985. Queen's University in Canada made the Lorne Greene Award to honor outstanding acting. Canada Post made a stamp in his honor in 2006 as part of its series of stamps about Canadians in Hollywood. He was added to Canada's Walk of Fame in 2015. These awards weren't just for his acting, they were also for how he changed entertainment and culture.